Good afternoon, everybody. It's Debbie Evans here, and Rolo, of course. He's sat very attentively listening to hear today's story, which is a chapter from the second book in the Secret Adventures of Rolo series. This one's called the Chilvester Passage, and this involves a trip to London in 1966, and it's all about the theft of the World Cup. So hopefully we've got some Jack Russells listening today, as well as some children and anybody else who likes hearing a story at 3:30 in the afternoon. So off we go. Carrying Yulia's tiny lantern carefully by its handle in my front teeth, Chickpea and I made slow progress through the time tunnel. As we exited, I sniffed the air and looked around to see where we could possibly be this time. I left the lamp inside the tunnel. Where were we? I looked around for clues. We came blinking into the sunshine in the middle of a busy square with traffic going round on all sides. I could see 3 black lions on identical plinths to the ones that we'd just climbed out of. I'm just going to show you here Chantal's drawing, one of the very famous Landseer lions in Trafalgar Square. And a tall column in the middle of the square with an important man perched on the top. I knew exactly where we were, only a short distance from the Chilvester Passage. The cars looked old-fashioned, and judging by the look of the red buses and the number plates and the short skirts being worn by ladies with big hairdos, I reckoned we were in the 1960s. For some inexplicable reason, I felt the urge to jump on a bus, and of course Chickpea followed. We sneaked under an itchy, checkered cushion bench seat, unseen by the bus conductor, who was wearing a peaked cap and whistling whilst he leant on a floor-to-ceiling pole in the gap at the back of the bus. He was almost hanging out in the road as he swung from the pole, and I thought he might be showing off. He had a rather fascinating silver machine round his neck on a wide strap, and the machine made an interesting whizzing noise when he clicked some dials and turned the handle. Then it spat out long white paper tickets, which he tore off with a flourish as he strode along the lower deck, talking cheerily to the passengers and greeting most of them by name. We didn't have any money, and I wasn't sure if we needed a ticket, so we stayed hidden, eyed suspiciously by a black Scotty dog sitting very primly on its owner's lap. When I saw Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, I was pleased when a lady reached up and pulled the cord that set the bell ringing to warn the bus driver up the front to stop, as this was a request stop. I had a strong feeling that we had to get off the bus in Westminster, but I'm not sure why. We sneaked off the bus, hidden behind a shopper's wicker basket on wheels. According to Big Ben's unmistakable round clock face, it was late afternoon. Now what? Right next to the bus stop, I saw a sign on a building saying Methodist Central Hall. I stood up on my hind legs and peered through the window. We Jack Russells are nothing if not curious. A small poster was advertising the fact that the famous gold Jules Rimet trophy was being exhibited alongside a rare stamp collection 3 months ahead of the World Cup finals being played in the capital. I'd love to have a closer look at the World Cup. I hear it's made of solid gold and worth a fortune, whispered Chickpea. I'm just going to show you the drawing that accompanies this little piece. There you can see Rolo and Chickpea looking in the window. I hadn't worked out what we were actually in London for, so we trotted up the stone steps, spun round in the revolving door, and somehow got inside, hidden amongst the creased trouser legs and shiny city shoes flocking into the building for a glimpse of the trophy. "You'll have to be quick, ladies and gents, it's almost closing time," said a man officiously jangling a bunch of keys on a big hoop. We ducked under one of the glass-top frames that contained sheets of postage stamps. Men sporting trilby hats with either Macintoshes over their arms, folded newspapers tucked under them, or umbrellas hooked over them, bent over the display cabinet, staring intently at the contents. Most of them seemed to be wearing the same style of thick, black, square-framed glasses. Across the room, a small crowd gathered in awe around a glass case containing the gleaming gold trophy, the most famous and sought-after prize in football, the Jules Rimet. A bell rang and a voice announced that it was closing time. A black felt cover was draped heavily over the display case we were hiding under, right down to the floor. "Who put the lights out?" squeaked Chickpea in alarm. "Now what, smarty paws?" she asked as we peered out through a slit in the cloth, watching all the dark suits and short skirts pouring out through the doors as if someone had pulled out a bath plug. A few moments later we heard the click of the key in the lock and the room was plunged into darkness, leaving behind the smell of Old Spice aftershave lingering in the air. "We have to get back to the time tunnel," wailed Chickpea. "My people will be very upset if they find my basket empty." I was getting a bit fed up with her whining. "I didn't ask you to come with me," I snapped. "You just invited yourself." Then, seeing her little crestfallen face, I added a bit more kindly, "Don't worry, we can always get back home. We just need to work out how we get out of this building." Both of us made a thorough investigation of the exhibition hall, trying not to give in to despair. It looked as if we might have to stay there till morning, when presumably the door would be unlocked. We slept for a few hours, lost in our own thoughts, and then we heard a loud noise. It sounded like someone was trying to come in, but not through the door. We instinctively hid under the heavy cover again. There was the sound of the swinging of a hefty sledgehammer or something similar, and that was followed at once by the tinkling of breaking glass. I braced myself, waiting for the inevitable sound of a security alarm going off. You know how I hate those. Amazingly, though, all remained silent. The sensors were attached to the front of the trophy display case, not the back, which was up against the wall and now sported a man-size hole visible in the flash of a torch beam. I peeped out from under the cover and saw a pair of very shiny brown pointed shoes appearing through the hole in the wall behind the case, which now left the famous trophy standing unprotected and highly vulnerable. I watched, mesmerised, as I witnessed gloved hands remove the gold cup and stuff the precious trophy inside a cloth sack. I couldn't get a look at the thief's face, as he had a trilby pulled down and his features were in shadow, but his jaws were working. He seemed to be chewing something, and I registered to memory the shiny brown pointed shoes. He spat something into a piece of paper from his pocket, and I saw him screw it up and drop it on the floor. The thief's work was done, and, silent as night, he slipped back out through the hole in the wall, which also gave us trapped dogs our desperately needed escape route out of the exhibition hall. I stopped to investigate what he had dropped on the floor. I sniffed at it. It smelt of spearmint and was screwed up in a tight ball wrapped in a slip of paper on which I could see writing. The discarded gum was still sticky, so I carefully peeled off the paper and on it found an address, which I memorised. I then screwed it all up again and kicked it under the wooden bench with my now very sticky, spearminty front paw. Ew, horrid stuff. The hole in the wall that the burglar had made led us into an adjoining church, and we followed in his footsteps through the exit door, which, in his haste, he had left slightly open. We needed to get back to Trafalgar Square pretty quick. I saw a black cab with a yellow light on and the driver snatching 40 winks at the wheel whilst waiting for the next passenger. The back door had been left open by the previous fare, and as luck would have it, I overheard a call come through for a pickup at Charing Cross Station. "Quick, follow me," I barked at Chickpea and leapt into the taxi. For once she held her tongue. We had a free ride and jumped out unseen at the main line station, just a stone's throw from Trafalgar Square and the time tunnel entrance. Now, this is where I have to confess I messed up a bit. I'm normally a fairly considerate Jack Russell, but I'm used to operating solo. I gave no thought to my wingman, Chickpea. She was lagging behind a bit and peering in shop windows, and I crossed the road to the square without waiting for her. I found the right lion statue, opened the trapdoor in the plinth, and jumped straight into the time tunnel. It was pitch black. I was anxiously looking for Julia and let the door shut with a resounding bang behind me. And then I remembered that Julia was away on my recording mission, and so off I went, homeward bound, using Julia's lantern that I'd left inside the tunnel. It wasn't until I reached the foxhole that I realised I'd left my companion behind in London in the swinging 60s. I didn't know what to do, but assumed Chickpea would eventually follow. I had to get back to my bed as I was running out of time. I ran up the hill, hoping not to be seen. I needn't have worried. It was still pitch dark and very cold. Even the sun hadn't got up yet. I crept into my basket and crawled under the blanket, exhausted from the exhilaration of the adventure, but couldn't sleep. I was thinking about my abandoned companion and wondering if she'd found the right lion plinth, and indeed if she'd managed to get home safely. Otherwise she would be stuck in 1966. Early next morning, out for walkies on the field, we saw Chickpea's owners looking very agitated indeed. They were calling and calling for her. I was hoping against hope to be flattened at any moment by a small energetic Jack Russell, but of course Chickpea was nowhere to be seen. When the smiley lady questioned her absence, Chickpea's owners explained that she hadn't been seen since yesterday evening. The smiley lady made sympathetic noises and told them not to worry and that she would keep her eyes open for the missing dog. No good searching the fields, smiley lady. I know exactly where she is, I thought to myself, but of course I couldn't say anything out loud. I did the next best thing and went into Eeyore mode, which meant I sat down and dug my heels in, dragging on the lead, and the smiley lady eventually took the hint, cut my walk short, and we went home early. She said I looked a bit sheepish. You're definitely out of sorts, Rolo. I have to go out, I'm afraid, so you'll be on your own in the house for a while. Mind you be a good boy, she said, picking up her car keys. I was glad she talked to me like a human. I glanced at the front door. The skateboard was missing, so I assumed the floppy-haired boy was also out. I would have to seize the moment. I picked up the pink ball and raced to the foxhole entrance of the time tunnel. No time to waste, no time to find Julia either. Powering on in the dark tunnel, guilt overwhelmed me. Emerging from the base of the lion plinth, I spotted Chickpea at once, chasing pigeons round the fountains in the shadow of Nelson's column. Some girls with short skirts and beehive hairdos gathered round, stroking her. She's shivering, said one in a yellow polka dot dress. Actually, it's the terrier Shake, but I didn't say anything. Oh, look, there's another one. Oh no, I'd been spotted. Look, he's matching. Sweet. Come here, Poppet. Next thing I knew, we were being lifted up and told to say cheese, whilst one of the girls pressed a button on a big camera she wore around her neck. The camera made an alarming swooshing sound and a square picture shot out. She held it up. It looked blank to me. Then she flapped it around in the air and miraculously a picture started to appear of Chickpea and me and a bunch of strangers. After smothering us with cherry red lipstick kisses and choking us with a cloud of Yves Saint Laurent Rive Gauche perfume, they at last put us down on the pavement. Thank goodness, I exclaimed, greeting Chickpea with my wet nose. I'm so sorry. Are you hungry? She turned away. Oh dear, I was getting the silent treatment. We trotted off across the square, making a quick escape from the giggly girls and their Polaroid camera. Actually, I'm starving, she replied with a weak smile, and I led the way round the corner to a hamburger joint called Wimpy, where I thought we could scavenge some scraps for my poor little friend. We were in luck. The bin was overflowing with uneaten fast food, and I saw a sign which read, rather ironically, Keep Britain Tidy. Didn't you remember where the time tunnel entrance was? I asked Chickpea as she wolfed down half a discarded burger. No, I couldn't think exactly where we'd come out. I thought it was best to wait in Trafalgar Square when I realised I'd lost you. I knew it was one of the 4 lions, but I couldn't remember which one, and none of them seemed to have a visible trapdoor. I can't believe you left me in London. I made my apologies again. After food, I think she softened a bit. Never argue with a hungry woman. We have to get you home as soon as possible. Your people are out looking for you, I said anxiously. I've stayed out a couple of times before, so I don't think they'll be too concerned, but I've never been away quite this long. Come on, I've had enough of London, she replied, with a French fry hanging unattractively out of her mouth. We found the time tunnel entrance at the base of the lion plinth in Trafalgar Square and made our way home in silence. I didn't really know what to say to her. We were relieved to see daylight through the foxhole entrance and guessed it was early afternoon. We crossed the road, scampered up the hill and ran into the field. Chickpea, there you are. Where have you been? The little dog was immediately scooped up by her lycra-clad dad, who'd been out for a run, and carried home for inspection by his anxious children. Chickpea's home, I heard them chorus as the front door shut with a bang. I heard the cat flap rattle, echoing its annoyance with me. Unobserved, I ran home and just managed to get through the trapdoor and tidy the bottles under the sink before I heard a car engine and the smiley lady and floppy-haired boy came in noisily through the front door. She was telling him not to leave his skateboard where people could trip over it. I greeted them in the usual fashion, jumping up and nipping their fingers so they would not suspect anything was amiss. They were too busy looking for puddles. I slept in my basket for most of the afternoon. I knew I'd have to return through the trapdoor, through the time tunnel to London that night, as I had to pass on my information to the police dogs back in 1966. I was, after all, a very important witness to the theft of the World Cup trophy, and I just couldn't let it rest. So I'm going to leave it there for this afternoon. Rolo's jumped down, he's off, and I'll be back at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon to tell you what happened next. So I hope you can join me, and thank you very much for listening and watching, and I will now post this to YouTube in case you missed the beginning. Bye for now.